Okay, so now to get official, I'm Meg Carney, the founding director of the Solstice MFA in Creative Writing program here at LaSalle University. And the people on the live stream actually can't hear all the applause and hooting and hollering, which I realize. So people are clapping right now. This is our 10-day residency, which is the start of our fall semester and the mark of our 20th anniversary. Okay, so now for tonight's reading. Typically, we have 4 readers, but don't worry because each will read just a little bit shorter than is typical because we have 4. So first up, we will have Maurizio Turco. He will be introduced by Associate Director Quentin Collins. Then we'll have faculty member Gina Chung, who will be introduced by fiction student Millie Sullivan. Next, we'll have faculty at large Kathleen Aguero. She will be introduced by poetry student Darren Black. And we will conclude with a new faculty member, Kevin McLellan, and he will be introduced by yours truly. So Quentin, come on up.
All right, thank you, staff member, for lowering this for me. You're very welcome, sir. So, everybody, I'm Quentin Collins. I am a Solstice MFA alum first, and then associate director. To introduce my alum, grad assistant, Maurizio Turco. So, for those of you who don't know, Maurizio was among our first group of students who officially started the program here at LaSalle and then graduated from LaSalle following our move from Pine Manor College. So very momentous that he gets to read during this anniversary residency. However, his journey with us actually began prior to the transition. So as the world was reeling from the COVID-19 pandemic, Maurizio was out there searching for a community of writers. And he found me of Solstice while we were at his previous home. Unfortunately, because there's a lot of paperwork and bureaucracy with moving a program from one institution to another, we were told we had to return his deposit, tell him that he could not enroll, and in no way whatsoever encourage him to wait for us to finalize our new start at LaSalle. Despite our stern warnings to Maurizio, and from a certain individual at the Board of Higher Education that we are not to do certain things, we were knowingly enticing him to put his creative writing dreams on hold for us. But he did. This was one of the many indications of how dedicated Maurizio would go on to be in the Solstice community, eventually serving as class speaker at his commencement and grad assistant for the first time last July. Moreover, throughout his time as a student, he often volunteered to arrive on campus a day early to help us get all the stuff we move before you get here from one building to the next. So, big clap for that. Now, the depth of Maurizio's care is not just an attribute related to how much he's willing to carry for us. And I mean that figuratively and literally. It is also a key tenet of his writing practice. Maurizio actually recently told me that he's only a few essays shy of having a complete manuscript ahead of final revisions, a testament to the industriousness that he exhibited as a student as he worked on his creative thesis, Tremors, a literary manuscript centered around the father-son relationship, the narrator's hobbies as vehicles for combating the angst of home life, and coming to terms with panic and anxiety issues. What I enjoy most about Maurizio's writing is how he does not shy from honesty, bringing us directly into the narrator's discomfort and trusting that we'll be able to feel ourselves reflected in the scenes, dialogue, interiority, and more. So here is just a short example from the essay in the manuscript called The Other Woman. I sat up and thought about what my dad said. He couldn't count on me. What were the times I couldn't count on him? I know that I didn't always make things easy for my dad, but at the end of the day, I still loved him. I did want things to work between us, but it frustrated me that he couldn't understand that other people also depended on me. I didn't want to let them down. I didn't want to become my father. Now, that is honesty right there. So, Let's get some more of it with a big warm welcome for Maurizio Turco.
Thank you for lifting this for me. Thank you so much, Quentin, for that wonderful introduction. I truly appreciate the kind words. As Quentin said, my name is Maurizio Turco, and I am a 2024 alum and grad assistant for this summer's July residency. I'm so grateful that Meg and Quentin have allowed me to come back to grad assist for my second year in a row, and I'm so excited to be here with all of you. Tonight, I have an excerpt from an essay in my manuscript, Tremors. I do want to give a content warning that suicide, substance abuse, and self-harm will be themes in this essay. So if any of these are triggering or uncomfortable for you, please don't hesitate to step out. The essay begins with me at my first ever therapy session a few months after my discharge from McLean Hospital. Also, the character Steve is my best friend who I met at age 12, as well as the person I roomed with in undergrad. The essay is called Tipping Point. As I entered the room, I noticed there were not any windows in here. The only source of light was a desk lamp fluttering every few seconds. I sat in the chair across from the dark leather seat opposite of myself. An old mahogany desk placed in between. As Dr. Schmidt arrived, I watched as he closed and locked the door behind him. I found this odd, though I didn't know if other therapists also locked their patients in their rooms. Since I didn't know this was customary, I remained quiet. He was a robust man in dark pants and a white button down. His hair was gray and patched the parts of his scalp that weren't already balding. As the light continued to blink, I couldn't help but feel like I was in an interrogation versus a therapy session, and as the appointment began, it became one. So how do you do it? He asked. I beg your pardon, I asked as I tilted my head. How are you here? His eyes stared into mine with ferocity. I sat silent and remained still. Why do you try to kill yourself? Didn't you think of those you care and love about? I inhaled and exhaled before answering his questions. I guess I felt stuck and alone. I wasn't thinking clearly enough, he jabbed back. That's your first mistake. You didn't think. What made you feel stuck? I was taking too many classes. I should have only been taking 3, like all of my friends, but I had to take 5. I went easy on myself for the first few years of college because I was focused on track and field. I replied as sweat poured from my underarms. And whose fault was that? Dr. Schmidt questioned as he smirked at me. My words quivered. Well, between that and dealing with my parents' divorce, I didn't think it would. See? Again, you didn't think, he said as he jotted notes on his notepad. Whose fault was it? He asked again as his tone remained firm. Mine? I hesitated. You're damn right. It was your fault you took too many classes, and it was your fault you decided to try to end your life. What about your parents? Don't you even care? Of course I care, I said. That's why I couldn't go through with it. That's bullshit, he said. You're bullshitting yourself and those you love. If you actually thought about your actions and those you'd be affecting, you wouldn't have decided to try to end your life. But you don't think about anything other than yourself, do you? I sat in my seat sobbing. Was it actually my fault? In this moment, I certainly felt like it was, but as I write these words, I know that wasn't the case. This was a professional meant to help me, but all he did was make me feel worse than I already had. Needless to say, I never went back to Dr. Schmidt. Group therapy seemed to work best. I found solace in listening to the stories and conditions of others. It made me feel like my diagnosis could have been so much worse. Some patients actually overdosed and were resurrected with the use of Narcan, stomach pumps, or other life-saving measures. I survived because I simply spit out the pills. Did I actually want to die at the time of my attempt? If I did, I feel I would have swallowed all of them. I wouldn't have thought twice, but I didn't. What would have happened if I had taken my life? How would my mother have reacted, finding my lifeless body lying prone atop the wooden floorboards? I imagine she would have screamed. She would have cried. She would have screamed and cried. Her tears of sorrow, disappointment, disbelief, regret, slipping down towards my body, allowing me to float in a pool of water of her own making. Would she try to revive me? Would she pray to God to bring me back? Or would she accept that her son was gone? My dad didn't live with us at the time, but I often find myself wondering what might have happened had he been the one to turn the doorknob as the white pills filled my mouth. Would I have swallowed them knowing it was he who was behind the other side of the door? Would he cry for help, scream, become so shocked that he'd lose his ability to speak? his only son, his flesh and blood, unresponsive on the floor, face down, dead. I snapped out of my dissociation from the group as it was my turn to speak. How are things going for you? The group facilitator asked. Honestly, I hesitated as I thought of a clear response. I'm not sure. Some days I feel like I'm doing better. Others I feel like I'm still lost. What makes you feel that way? They continued. Since my diagnosis, I've lost someone I've fell in love with. I lost my love for running. Slowly, I feel like I'm losing my friends too. I know it's hard right now, but things will get better, they replied before moving to the next person in line. My nerves twitched harder than they had before the session began, so I got up from my seat and walked out. I thought about my friends, who I hadn't seen in months, and wondered if they still thought about me. It was a brisk evening in April of 2012. I figured visiting my friends might take my mind off of things, but as soon as I stepped onto Emmanuel's campus, I froze for a moment. The last time I was here, snow covered the ground, and now the grass and flowers bloomed. January seemed so distant, as did my friends. I entered the dormitory hall and took the elevator up to my old floor. I feared how my friends would engage with me, or questions they might ask. Maybe if I'm lucky, they won't bring up my absence. Walking up to my old dorm, I stalled. For a second, I contemplated leaving. Maybe I wasn't ready to see them yet. But before I could think further, I knocked. Steve opened the door. Hey, Turco, how are you doing? Steve asked as he placed his hand on my right shoulder. I'm all right, I said. It's been lonely without you. I missed you, man. I can tell Steve's confession was genuine. He did miss me and I missed him. He was the only friend who called and reached out to me when I was hospitalized. So what's the plan for tonight? I asked. There's a small party happening close by. Figured we'd check it out, then come back here and hang out for the night. Old times. Old times. I couldn't remember the last time I went to a party and actually enjoyed myself. I knew with my new medications and still on the road of recovery, drinking was not the best idea, but I also didn't want my friends to worry about me or feel as if I had changed. But the truth was, I had. I was still in the midst of figuring myself out. Drinking was certainly not the answer, but I did what I had to in order to blend in order to avoid suspicion that I wasn't the same person anymore, to avoid losing those closest to me. It didn't take much. Early 10 at night, I already could feel myself fading. We took shots, we drank beer, my vision blurred as I stumbled about. At the party, I noticed Steve talking to Danielle, the girl I could have lost my virginity to last year, though my anxious tremors put an abrupt stop to that. What the fuck are you doing? I asked as I pointed at Steve while seeing double. Calm down, man, Steve said. We're just talking. I watched as they each smiled and Steve placed his hand on her thigh. You backstabbing son of a bitch, I slared. Go ahead, you can have her. You're both sluts. I screamed as I ramped out into the night of Roxbury, then slammed the door behind me. Turco, Steve shouted as he ran towards me. Fuck you. I shouted as tears formed. How could he do this to me? He knew I had feelings for her. Had he slept with her when I was away? Has everyone just moved on and acted as if I had died? At the time, I felt betrayed, but looking back, I understand that I was lost and drowning in a pool of alcohol and grief. The state I was in darkened as I noticed a rusty fence in close proximity. In my drunken stupor, I climbed to the top, placed my wrist on the pointed edge, and told Steve I was going to pull down, but he sprinted to my whereabouts and quickly pulled me off. Are you fucking crazy? He shouted as his eyebrows furrowed. Go ahead. I don't even care that blurted back. You need to calm down, he said. You don't think I'm calm? You think I'm crazy? I said as I noticed and picked up a loose brick from the ground. How's this for crazy? I chucked the brick into the middle of the street and watched it shatter. Luckily, no cars were driving down the road. This ain't you, he shouted. You need to stop. His words pierced my heart. I dropped to my knees and screamed as tears flew in all directions. What's wrong with me? I cried mumbled words. I need help. Steve rolled at me as tears formed in his eyes as he tried to fight them off. Let's go back, he said. Try to forget tonight. I've tried to forget that night, but it's one I often come back to. Not only did I ruin my friendship with Danielle, but I could have seriously hurt myself for someone else. That night, I turned into the worst version of myself, a bad friend, a destructive force, a monster. It was in that moment that I realized the hatred and anger I felt towards my father, towards my friends, towards my coaches, towards everyone was actually hatred and anger I felt towards myself. For the longest time, I was in denial. In order to change myself for the better, I had to accept the part of my struggles was internal. I had to take therapy more seriously. I had to let go of the emotional pain. because if I chose to continue going down this hostile path, I knew I would continue to fear myself. Thank you.
We're going to need this just a bit lower, even with me in heels. How's that? Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. For those of you who took the tour with me, more of me talking. Hi. I am introducing Gina Chung, who I had the pleasure of working with in the previous semester. Gina is the author of Sea Change, her 2023 debut novel. It was longlisted for the Center for Fiction First Novel Prize, a B&N Discover pick, and her short story collection, Green Frog, which was released in 2024 and explores cultural identity, the complexities of human relationships, and does this through this sort of a magical realism lens, which Sea Change also blends science fiction elements with a very grounded, emotionally realistic world. And Green Frog was highlighted on Good Morning America, was an NPR Best Book of the Year, and longlisted for the New American Voices Award. Gina is also the recipient of several notable awards in literature, including the O. Henry Prize for Short Fiction, a Pushcart Prize, 2 APALA Adult Fiction Honors. Her work is tender, at times very playful, and is emotionally resonant, whether she's writing about a daughter, an octopus, or a praying mantis looking for love. Gina is undoubtedly a very, very gifted author, but I primarily know her as my mentor. I entered LaSalle at a very strange time in my life. I had just left an MFA program that I had a very negative experience with. And upon completing the first residency here, I had a bit of a moment of doubt. I wasn't in that great of a place. And so I reached out to Gina, and the response that I got back was so heartfelt and so thoughtful that I still have it saved on my phone. I am not a sentimental person by nature. So for someone to have such an impact on me is really a testament to say that Gina is as brilliant of a human being as she is a writer. She deserves all of the praise and all of the applause. So why don't we welcome her on?
Thank you. Yeah, it's gonna need to be lower for me. Thank you so much. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Millie. I'm gonna weep a little bit, I think, but I'm gonna keep it together. That was incredible. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Happy day one of summer residency. This is my, I don't know, third summer residency now, which is wild. I feel like I know things now. Thank you, as always, for having me. Thank you, Meg and Quentin, for all of your incredible work, and to our grad assistants, Maurizio and Jess. None of this can happen without y'all. And thank you all for being here and for co-creating the magic that always comes with a Solstice residency, in which I have been the very grateful recipient of over the last, couple residencies that I've gotten to be part of. So I'm going to read two short pieces for you tonight, and they both happen to have been published recently, which is exciting since these two publications are both really amazing projects that I feel really honored to be part of. So I have to shout them out a little bit. This first piece that I'm going to read is from the second issue of Elastic Magazine, and it's their interspecies issue. And Elastic is a really cool experimental literary arts magazine. They're gorgeous art. Their books are they're like coffee table books that you want to keep out. So I really encourage you to check them out. I believe they're also funded in part through Harvard. So they have, Massachusetts roots. And the piece itself is called Bird Time. And that is what it is about. I was born with a sluggish heart, slow to pump, slow to contract, slow to open. I always took too long to do things, and it made me an awkward friend, an uninspiring daughter, a bad date. So the operation was meant to jumpstart me, to reset my mechanisms and make me as measured and certain as an atomic clock. 2 days after the procedure, I woke up in a body that was not my own. My eyes made the world convex and bright. The trees were a chemical green and the falling rain an electric purple. When I opened my mouth to drink my habitual cup of coffee, I found that it had become a beak, sharp and unskilled at taking in liquids. My bones were aerated, my spine a vertiginous spiral staircase, my fingernails long and curved. But my heart clanged like a tiny anvil, many more beats per minute than I could reliably count. Between one shallow breath and the next, the day bled into night and back again. The doctors had told me to expect this, that I would have to relearn the logic of my limbs and recalibrate the rest of my body to the speed of my new heart. They'd said this excitedly, proudly. As the recipient of the first successful bird-to-human heart transplant in the history of medical science, I was special. The surgeon kept referring to my new heart as the organ. The organ needs time to get used to its new home, he told me over the phone, as if time were still something I possessed in usable quantities. You may experience some temporary side effects, he said, as I studied myself in the mirror, the slope of my head, the black of my bristled tongue. Journalists searched for my name and photographers stormed my house. The bright popcorn flash of cameras made green circles dance in front of my eyes. I took to pulling down all the shades simultaneously to avoid scrutiny. Friends and not friends left me comments strung with heart emojis on my pre-operation Instagram post, praising my bravery and asking how I was. None of them called. I watched the small letters on my screen march away from me like ants. One anonymous commentator wrote that the procedure was an abomination in the eyes of the Lord and that I would burn in hell for my sins. This had received over 300 likes from people I didn't know. Called an infomercial blaring in the background. Have you seen the news? You're all over it, she said. I hope you're not just snacking all day at home. Your metabolism was always so slow. I scissored open a can of beans and pecked until the ache in my stomach eased, then returned. I ate at the counter. I ate at the sink. I ate, but had already eaten. I hadn't eaten at all. I couldn't imagine ever eating again. I ate until I was hungry. My belly expanded like a sail in the wind and immediately deflated. The news, she was saying, your metabolism. As the days went by, I learned how to catch and nibble the spiders I found in the corners of the house, to savor the crunch of their legs and the bursting juice of their eyes. I drank water standing with my mouth open in the shower. I dreamed of small bones breaking in my hands. 2 small, tender bumps on my shoulders opened into wings. I called the doctor. She prescribed me some painkillers, told me not to worry, to treat myself to an at-home spa day. So I ran myself a bubble bath and felt my body float in the water, my feathers curl from the heat. The bubbles dissolved. The water had gone cold and gray. My off-again boyfriend called. I hadn't heard from him in weeks. He asked impatiently. I'm still thinking about it, I said. I'm recovering from surgery. Well, how do you think that makes me feel? He said. I tried to respond to say that soon I would be just as capable as he was of making decisions in real time, but an angry squawk came out, startling us both. I hung up and the sound kept going somewhere above the house. In the evening, I tried out my new wings, stood on the roof and felt the moon's pale fingers caress them. My eyes caught thousands of small movements in the grass, and I dove and snapped the neck of a field mouse. I tasted its fear, a metallic tang that threaded its blood and made me shiver with joy. A month passed this way, or many. Every kill was its own season. I pushed myself from the ground into the vaulted blue of the night sky, riding silent wind currents. I felt a new wildness in my blood. My heart thumped in a rapid, jagged tattoo that propelled me through the air, every beat a pulsing certainty, insisting on my right to live. Thank you. And so this next piece is one that I wrote for the publication of a zine project that's called 30 Cabins. And this was led and edited by a friend, the fiction writer Josh Riedel. And he wrote a great novel called Please Report Your Bug Here that I would encourage everyone to check out. It's very funny, kind of satirical Silicon Valley type of book that involves some speculative reality. So this project, 30 Cabins, was inspired by a book called Sunset's Cabin Plan Book, which I haven't heard of, but it's a classic guide to designing and building vacation cabins from, I think it was published in like 1918. So apparently Josh became interested in this book while working on his second novel, and he reached out to a group of writers that happens to include me and asked us all to write short pieces of fiction inspired by one of the cabin blueprints that are in this book. So the zine includes some really amazing writers, like real heavy hitters like Ed Park, Rachel Kong, Jamie Ford, and it's coming out this August. So if you're interested in getting a copy, you can check it out at 30cabins.com, and that's 30 spelled out THIRTY. And the cabin that I chose to write about is called Weekend Cabin in the Redwoods. Melissa knew she was supposed to feel humbled and awed by the giant trees surrounding the cabin, but she just found them creepy. She'd never been one for the outdoors, but Jeff liked the outdoors, and she liked Jeff. In fact, she thought she could someday even love Jeff. Marissa had never been in love, but she wanted to belong to someone, and Jeff seemed like a good candidate, even if she sometimes felt like they were speaking two different languages. For instance, Jeff had suggested that they go to his uncle's vacant cabin in Humboldt County for Valentine's Day weekend to hike and see the redwoods. Marissa had never gone hiking, and she told him so, hoping that this lack of experience would also signal her disinterest. But Jeff had misinterpreted this as trepidation. "Don't worry, we'll stick to the easy trails. You'll love it," he said. Jeff meant to be kind and encouraging, Marissa knew. And wasn't this what dating someone was all about, sharing one another's interests and trying out new things? So she agreed, only regretting her decision when she saw that Jeff, when he came to pick her up, was dressed head to toe in sleek, expensive-looking hiking gear. She, on the other hand, was wearing yoga pants and Uniqlo heat tech. But Jeff didn't say anything about her lack of preparedness. "I can't wait for you to see the place," he said, squeezing her hand on the long, winding drive up to the redwoods. They'd arrived at nightfall, and it had begun to rain, so after unpacking the car and settling in, they went to bed. Marissa woke frequently during the night, unused to the creak of the floorboards, the patter of raindrops on the peaked roof, and the distant, metallic-sounding cries of foxes. At least she hoped they were foxes. Next to her, Jeff snoozed, his breathing quiet and even, hands clasped and tucked underneath his stubbled chin. It made her smile, seeing Jeff sleep like a child. When he was in repose like this, she didn't have to contend with all the ways in which they might be incompatible. At dawn, Marissa got up and slipped into the tiny kitchen where she heaped ground espresso into the basket of the small mocha pot they'd found the night before in the rusting dish rack. She waited impatiently, yawning and rubbing sleep out of her eyes for the coffee to come spinning out of the silver funnel, and stood at the window. That was when she saw it, a movement in the trees. Something that could have been a person, but could also have been an animal, stepped out into the clearing. She wasn't wearing her glasses, she remembered. They were back in the bedroom on the nightstand. The dark form moved closer to the window. It was vaguely man-shaped, but no matter how hard she squinted, she couldn't make out its face, though she did see its eyes, golden as a mid-autumn moon. Far from being frightened, though, she felt curiosity unfurl within her, a sensation that began to take on the warm contours of something else. Before she could stop herself, she raised one hand and placed it on the cold window pane. After a few beats, the shape drew closer. He continued to stare at her before raising an answering hand and placing it on the glass as well. The hand was larger than hers, the 5 fingers thick and square but dexterous looking, and its palm covered in fine dark hair. Plumes of breath from the shape clouded the glass so that she couldn't see the face behind the hand, but she felt that those wild yellow eyes were without malice or agenda, and that they saw something in her that no one else ever had. They gazed at one another. A minute passed, or perhaps several. Then the mocha pot boiled over. Drops of coffee hissed on the coil of the electric stove. She reached to switch it off. When she turned back to the window, the shape was gone. She ran into the bedroom, grabbed her glasses, and stepped outside, heart clanging in her chest. The cold morning air pierced her lungs. Where had it gone? Had there actually been something there, or was she merely sleep-addled? She scanned the thicket of dark, ancient trees as if the answers could be found there. Eventually, her eyes settled on the forest floor, the dirt path that led up to the cabin. Tire marks from Jeff's Prius were inscribed on the ground, looking mysterious and rune-like in the fresh mud. And running alongside them were hoof marks, larger than any deer's hooves she'd ever seen, each one shaped like a curious, lopsided heart. Thank you.
Right. Yep. Yep. There you go.
We might have to raise this mic for.
Yeah, I'm gonna raise the mic for sure.
Right.
So the podium's right here.
Yeah, cool.
Music stand. That's nice and wide. I'm gonna raise the mic. Let's put you over like just a little. Yep. There we go.
There we go. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear myself. So I'm here to introduce Kathy. While researching possible mentor matches back during the January residency, I came across Kathy's CV on the web, and I was kind of, crossing my I's, dotting my T's, trying to find out who would be the best match for me. The depth and diversity of Kathy's professional experience as a poet and as a teacher just really, really blew me away. I was lucky enough to get matched with her. She was my first choice, and I realized as a first semester student how rare that was. I was confident that no matter what writing shortcoming or challenge I might have, she could help me to hone my poetic voice and nudge me to growth in my writing. During our post-residency meeting, after we were matched at a local coffee shop, when I told Kathy about my research, she deadpanned, "So you found me on the dark web." Kathy's wit put me at ease, and so our semester began. Kathy's generosity of time, her insightful critiques of all my drafts and revisions, even the bad ones, her prompts, and of course her praise really meant so much to me during my first Solstice semester. Kathy's most recent poetry collection is World Happiness Index through Tiger Bark Books. Her other publications include, after that, Investigations, The Mystery of the Girl Sleuth. Want to read that. Daughter of, The Real Weather, and Thirsty Day. She also has edited 3 volumes of multicultural literature for the University of Georgia's Press. Kathy was a former contributing editor for the Kenyon Review. She has also taught in the Changing Lives Through Literacy and Alternative Sentencing program. Kathy has received grants from the Elgin Cox Foundation, the Mass Council, the Mass Cultural Council, and most recently, she's been awarded with the 2026 Creative Individuals Grant from the Mass Cultural Council. It is my pleasure to present to you at the Solstice stage the talented poet, teacher, literary citizen, and my neighbor, Kathy Aguero.
Yep. There it is. Yep. Oh, yep. Yep.
Excellent. Sit down there.
Your age there.
Thank you,
Thank you so much.
Now we have to make the mic short again.
Yeah.
Should put me right after Gina with no interruption, right?
So glad that Quentin and Jennifer convinced me to keep my sneakers on.
And Darren, thank you for that lovely introduction. It's a real pleasure to work with someone you could walk around the corner and have a coffee with, because it turned out we're very close. We live very close together. And it's wonderful to be here, especially on this anniversary, because I've been with the program since it started as a conference, right? And it's been exciting to see it grow and to see everybody here. So thank you all very much, my favorite peoples. I always like to begin a reading with a poem by someone else, and I wanted to begin with a poem from Robin Becker's Midsummer Count, New and Selected Poems, which is out from the University of New Mexico Press. If you're not familiar with her poetry, definitely read it. She is accessible, humorous, serious. She's a wonderful poet, and actually her work is one of the first contributions to the University of New Mexico archive of LGBTQ poets. So they're starting that, which is also exciting. This poem, when I heard it and when I read it, reminded me of how I feel, and maybe many of you feel. There's sort of like this darkness these days, but then also this pleasure in all kinds of everyday things. And Meg, I think you kind of alluded to that in our opening talk. Well, this morning in Harrisville Cemetery, calm settles over stones and hills. When I walk in the old shade of white oaks and sycamores with the young dog. Beneath the peaceful surface, I sense an undercurrent of fear of my government and my president, of his State Department and his Joint Chiefs. And beneath that, an underlying current of sadness for Judith and her bad diagnosis. And beneath that sadness, the underlying condition of gladness, as when the timid dog finds his courage and jumps into Harrisville Pond to retrieve a stick. And beneath that, fury at the hatefulness aimed at protesters, and fury at those who call the truth fake news. Beneath the rage, an underlying pleasure in the scent of roasting fennel and tomatoes simmering in the oven, and pleasure in cooking for my best friend and her son and his new wife, who will take pleasure in walking uphill to my place for dinner. Beneath these pleasures, the underlying condition of loneliness shows up. Old colleague whose company I never enjoyed, but with whom, nevertheless, I shared an office. And beneath loneliness, the terror of uncertainty, the not knowing what will come terror that abides at the bottom of the well, sloshing around when we drop the bucket to pull up an underlying gratitude for fresh, cold water. Robin Baker. I will tell Robin how you all applauded. So I moved about, I don't know, 9 or 10 years ago from Cambridge to Salem, which is a curious little place. And this is a poem called Salt Room at the Salem YMCA. We look forward to relaxing in the salt room still under construction, then learn it will be locked so no one sneaks in to have sex. You'd be surprised, our Pilates instructor tells us, every nook and cranny. Exactly what is happening in the bathroom stalls behind shower curtains? Surely the lockers are too narrow for such activity. We practice downward dog. What kind of yoga are couples performing in the swimming pool, purified by chlorine? Maybe that smell isn't dirty socks. Suddenly, the why becomes more interesting. Second, a wrench not in grunts of effort, but of ecstasy. Life spilling everywhere, knocking into kettlebells, frenzied on the treadmill, elbowing out our steadfast attempts to lose weight, gain muscle, bone density. Why not swap New England's earnestness for the sweaty activities of desire? And this is Salem, Mass is called the Witch City, and even the cop cars have witches on their doors. Leafleting at Home Depot, Salem, Massachusetts, the Witch City. To call us middle-aged would be a kindness. A dozen gray heads gather in the parking lot as a young organizer instructs us how to approach customers and hand them flyers on what to do should ice come for a neighbor or a loved one. Don't go too near the entrance. Wait till people leave the store. Don't call attention. As we practice our spiel on one another, 5 cop cars arrive. I'm shy and haven't talked to anyone when the head of security approaches in a white shirt and tie, telling us he's sympathetic to our cause, but we're on private property. And all it takes is one complaint. We're banished to the back lot where no one parks. My friends and I decline the invitation to debrief at IHOP. The cops drive off, no doubt relieved for an easy detail. We should have handed them flyers. A witch on the broomstick rides the door of each patrol car. Surely she'd be on our side. And so a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I had the opportunity to travel to Cuba. And my father's side of the family, his grandfather, my great-grandfather, came as a child from Cuba when his own father, my great-great-grandfather, was executed for starting an insurrection against Spain. And he was a remarkable man. I didn't even believe the stories about him till I went to Camagüey, where he was from, and had them verified. He inherited a small farm. He freed the slaves. He gave them each a plot of land. He started a school for the poor. And then he started this ill-advised revolution. His face is actually on a stamp, which I got a copy of. Joaquin, your face on a stamp, narrow with dark eyes and goatee. I wear your name, Cuban hero who led a revolt against Spain, but my grandmother's Swedish face. When I try to learn Spanish, my tongue sticks to its roof like a communion wafer. My R's roll like the flat tire I got on the highway, holding up rush hour traffic. And yet, here I am, great-great-granddaughter whose family couldn't pronounce their last name. In Camagüey, you were everywhere. A street named after you, a plaza, an obelisk at the site of your execution, a royal palm to honor martyrs, the legend that women cut their hair in mourning, that Agramonte dipped his handkerchief in your blood. Back home, I can't find you. And apparently a lot of people, thank you. Apparently there are a lot of poets in that family. And one of them was Francisco El Solitario. And his daughter, Brigida, is the person who I'm writing about. I'm trying to get some of her poems translated. They're very romantic. Brigida Aguero y Aguero, 1837. Judged and found to have the flaws of all Cuban women poets by a man who, of course, had no such flaws. You wanted, even during your illness, to love with a vehement love a soul who loves me with unmatched tenderness. A love you knew you wouldn't find, death having dropped its fine mantilla over your head. 29 years old, dying from consumption, sitting in your garden, planted with poinciana, yellow oleander, perhaps a Portia tree. You write and pray, Lord, oye asking his mercy, but end your poem as any woman should. Your will be done. This is a really old poem, but I thought it was appropriate to read at an MFA residency. My daughter, who is now in her late 30s and has 3 children, had an assignment in elementary school to write a poem. Poetry assignment. The thing that scares me most is death, my daughter answers. But already one poem about death for the assignment, My Future, has been stamped redo. If you don't follow the rhyme scheme, the rhythm, the rules, she explains, you get it back or marked B-. Poetry is fun, her teacher tells her. It's whatever you want. Then all these rules. She thumps out the rhythm on the kitchen table, knows AA, BB, CC. When I go to sleep at night, I won't wake up to see the light. Death has no rules. It can come at night when you lose control of sleep and just drift over its big mouth vacuuming you up. Worse, it could pick someone you love. That doesn't fit the rhythm, she decides, and crossly scribbles someone else. For those of you who have avoided writing about your emotions, the instruction sheet reads, this is your opportunity. Perhaps while in my bed I lie, some other sleeping one will die. Death takes you away like a kidnapper, a huge hand lifting you up, a cold blanket over you. It's my destiny, she tells me. Thank you very much, and ignore the rules of poetry.
Thank you. Thank you. Good job, Meg. Okay. We're going to have to raise it again for Kevin. Okay. Hello. That was awesome. These last few readings. Oh my goodness. Kevin McLellan is author of 5 poetry collections, including Sky, Pond, Mouth, winner of the 2024 Granite State Poetry Prize, and a finalist for the Tom Gunn Award in Gay Poetry. In Other Words, You was selected by Timothy Liu for the 2022 Hillary Pham Capital Collection, and Ornithology, a finalist for the 2019 Massachusetts Book Award. Kevin is also author of 2 poetry book objects, Hemispheres and Box, which is in brackets, which reside in the special collection of the History Project, as well as the special collections of several institutions, including Harvard, the University of Arizona, the University of Buffalo, and Colorado College. Kevin is also a video artist whose work has appeared in the Berlin Short Film Festival, Flicker's Rhode Island Film Festival, the Vancouver Queer Film Festival, and the LGBTQ+ Los Angeles Film Festival. Kevin, born and raised in Conway, New Hampshire. We got New Hampshire in the house these days, guys. We do. is now resident of Cambridge, Massachusetts. Kevin has been a guest faculty member here at the Solstice MFA program twice before and has just officially joined our faculty. In its description of Kevin's creation titled Hemispheres, the University of Arizona's Poetry Center states that, quote, book objects produced by this press frequently require slow reading and very careful handling. Hemispheres is very tightly bound with nylon thread, and the book's poems must be opened with enormous gentleness. These instructions seem like a metaphor for the heart of Kevin's work, which sometimes lay out image and emotion so raw it requires great gentleness, and which, in terms of its punctuation, syntax, and structure, often demands slow reading and very careful handling. His poems are made of a beautiful complexity, inventive and sometimes challenging, but always alluring in their exploration of love and longing and grief and illness and wonder. And so his poems require great attention. Watch what he does with nouns. Watch how he handles his verbs, his slash marks and colons and white space. After you hear him read, you will want to study him on the page. Both experiences will leave you asking again and again, how did he do that? I feel a few student craft analyses coming up. How lucky and grateful we are that you've joined us as faculty, Kevin. Please give him a warm Solstice welcome. Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord.
How's that?
Good. It has been such a long time since I've read. And I would like for you to think of this reading as a meditation, or maybe even say, what's the word? I wrote it down because I knew I'd forget. This is what happens when you turn 60. You start forgetting things. Words. Hypnosis. Yeah, so that being said, I'm going to go into sort of like a trance, and I'm just going to read poem to poem to poem. And so if you could withhold applause until the end, that'd be great. I might start like moving with the language. Okay. And I'm going to start, I'm going to read poems, a selection from my 4 books. And they're mostly short, so I will stay within the limits. The first poem I'm reading is the first poem I read as a visitor the first time I came here. So, yeah. It was not that long ago that I reached me, from where I speak now, not exactly whole, but the mountains were always there, the birds too. Also once mine flightiness, and the nameless me, know a wind that is yet to appear, and a scent for you. I can't find exact words. Mountains, that I go on like this. Also birds. Sometimes I don't mind, that I believe tomorrow, or without from where you speak. From ornithology. This is a failed piece of creative nonfiction that I reduced. In between the leaves dropping. By the time the sound of also my lengthening, then the height of holding my breath under the bed without dinner continues, won't rid the memory against my window, the aluminum ladder, lengthening to the roof. Then the height, my father fell, and the collision of tenses. Where were you? Earlier still, the lost of, and a toy, crossing the undertow, and downriver, my brother needs me, needs the beach, piggybacking his arms around another river. I am now, but he lived, so tell me, can there be? Open the window, sound of a sigh, must find a ladder, get the birds. In other words, you, the book title, dialectical. A wheel in you stop turning. Death, a caught word. Your eyes, a window. Clouds wait for the first spring thunderstorm to clear the palette. Can't decide if you'll stay indoors. Seems premature to imagine the parsley missing ground. Summer's either a portal or a container. Yes, clouds, a turning word caught in the wheel, looks you in the eye. Dog-eared. The brain sigh, mid-sentence, and process of migrating to the non-paper world. A bouquet of disparate sighs, after a crowd of a few teenagers, the timbre of their laughing voices, a foreign ditty, can't go back to the old fiction of the scarecrow, mocking you, must change your course. Okay, you are okay. Listening to Max Richter's The Departure on repeat. Dear you, I overheard the botanist say to high schoolers at the public gardens, look behind the flower for the swollen base. It took my breath away, and a young woman in the periphery of her peers noticed. She continued to look without it feeling like a stare, as if I was standing in shallow quicksand. I didn't feel shame at first, then walked away and only looked back once. I imagined myself just before, out of sight. And from Sky Pondmouth. Ecosystem. Here a valley. Here the likelihood of wind. A catalog of matter. The findings not unlike double negatives. I look for answers from the wellspring. Find this collision of monosyllables. The sky on top of the pond. These words must mean something. In a mirror, my face becomes a run-on sentence, and the syntax of eyes requires translation. These parallel mirrors take in and emit, transmit a series of unique frequencies, each slightly different from the previous, like a series of movie frames or DNA strands. They know things despite their connectedness. My body's ear detects their signals. Its a lack of awareness is mine. Imagine a ripe carrot propelling itself out of the ground, or a snail leaving its cornucopian dome. Imagine that I don't want to die motivation we wake up to each morning. Imagine a sky on top of a pond in a valley. Here, low clouds, like winter lily pads, hang with their half-submerged thoughts. Narrative. I'm going to read, it's a longer poem. I'm going to read one section. Here it is. What you need to know is that when I say stanza break, it's actually written in the poem with hard brackets. I have no other family, though there are many, and look to the world, stanza break, for stability. But it is accelerating more. And yes, I am hypercritical. For example, I walked home after the documentary about water, walked fast because it was raining. Didn't I learn, stanza break, anything? The rain stirred up the rag and milkweed and my acceleration. But now I am sitting in an Adirondack, blowing my nose. The crows here, stanza break, caw in threes. A cricket lost its long jump. The ferns will return, stanza break, when they feel like it. The time of day when we're all nearby animals hide behind trees. The trees detach from those about to, stanza break, detach. The wind accelerates, the leaves too. It just happens, not for some humans. For example, I resist, stanza break, the narrative. See it as insignificant, and especially when insistent. Though resist them less when I am in nature, and I am in nature. Okay. James Schuyler to John Ashbery. We are tentative. We are tentatively looking. Landscapes unknown. We are tentatively looking for landscapes unknown to us. Our window is a square. Our window is a beautiful, unlatched square picture window, and we are tentatively looking. Our window is ours, not the powers that be, and is beautiful and unlatched, and we are beautiful and not unlatched, and we are tentatively looking, and do not feel a bit disturbed or troubled. We have the light on, and then do not. First, we have the light on for the people, and then we have it off for ourselves. No, ourselves is a lie, for there is always darkness. We have the direction of darkness, so ourselves is a lie. When we have the light on. And the darkness is your yellow cardigan, and our window is a square. A square, yes, a square. And your yellow cardigan is in the darkness from your beautiful unlatched square picture window. Your yellow cardigan is shrouding, for we are tentatively looking towards landscapes that do not give us any indication of the other. Tentatively, yes, tentatively looking, we are in a beautiful square picture window, but neither unlatched nor green, not very distracted or troubled, really. We are merely tentative and can be seen with the light on and the direction of darkness. Thank you very much.
Wow, all right. Thank you, Kevin McLellan.
Yeah.
Kathleen Aguero, Gina Chung, Maurizio Turco.